Joining me to discuss the markets and other Bitcoin news, our Weekend Review panel, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Technology, Christie Harkin in Toronto, and Managing Editor of Markets, Brad Keoun in Austin, Texas.
Nice to see you again, Galen.
Yeah, it's good to be here. So, worst first week since 2017. Brad, why don't you break it down for us? What is happening in the markets and cryptocurrency and the price of Bitcoin?
Well, we were just talking about it this morning on our markets team meeting, and just talking about how different the start of this year has been from what the start of last year was like, when we were in a full-on bull market. And we were just looking at the numbers. Bitcoin rose 36% in the first 7 days of 2021. And here we are in first 7 days of 2022, and we're down about 10%. And if you run the charts, usually Bitcoin, my colleague Dominic Dantes was doing some analysis on this earlier this week. January is usually a relatively weak performance month for Bitcoin compared to the other months of the year. But yeah, this is the worst that this market has seen for several years. Here at about 41,000, we were 46,000 this time last week. And, a few months ago, people were talking about $100,000 Bitcoin. So there's not
I'm still talking
about
$100,000 Bitcoin. Can I still talk about $100,000 Bitcoin? I want to talk about that. A lot of people are. I need that to happen in time for my February vacation. I'm just looking at the December chart right now, and that's a lot of red in December as well. It feels like Bitcoin went into the year with a kind of in a tough spot, and then I think it seems like the sort of "don't fight the Fed" mantra really just took over midweek here. Even though I don't feel like the Fed's announcement was really should have been that shocking to Bitcoiners.
Right. I mean, people, what's happening now with inflation and monetary policy is in a certain way is what Bitcoiners have been talking about for years now, that the U.S. government and the Federal Reserve policies are basically creating unsustainable conditions. And, the Fed and the government have basically been floating the economy and markets since the coronavirus hit. That's why the stock market kept going down, even though we had one of the worst recessions we've ever had. But now it's time to get real. And, the Fed is going to start tightening, because we are now seeing the fastest inflation in 4 decades. So,
meanwhile, somewhat disappointing job numbers this morning, right? Doesn't feel like the jobs number is going to change what the Fed's schedule, but it seems like a pretty tough spot. Understandably, investors are nervous.
There was a mixed reading on the jobs report. The number came in a little bit lighter than people were expecting, but the unemployment rate went down, and there was some upward pressure on wages. And so people are saying it might be just a sign that, again, the labor market is so tight that employers are having trouble finding workers at the current wage levels.
So the long-term holders not picking up the slack to buy as the short-term investors back out of what's perceived as a risk-on asset. But I think within crypto, Bitcoin is kind of in some cases, the flight to quality. We've seen a little bit of a reversal of the downward trend in Bitcoin dominance. I'm just looking at, a handful of bellwethers against Bitcoin. Ether versus Bitcoin down in the past 2 days. Solana versus Bitcoin has been in trouble since December. AVAX versus Bitcoin down the past several days. Uniswap is a kind of an outlier in a way. That Uniswap is actually, sort of representing the DeFi category, has performed better than it was in December and the beginning of the year against Bitcoin, that is. But Christie, how can we kind of evaluate what's going on here between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies within the cryptocurrency sphere?
Well, it depends on who you are talking to. If you're talking to somebody who is very pro Bitcoin, but not to the exclusion of other coins. If you're not talking to an absolute Bitcoin maxi, this absolutely makes sense, because what we're looking at is
only talk to absolute Bitcoin maxi. Right?
I mean, if you're a maxi and you think that anything except Bitcoin is total crap and means nothing and will go to zero and has no use, then this is an alarming chart. If you are able to sort of look beyond that and understand that Bitcoin does certain things exceedingly well, and that other types of blockchains do other things that are not in competition with Bitcoin rather well, then this is not a matter of comparing apples and oranges even. What you're looking at is a maturation of the space overall. And you're seeing Bitcoin, if you're just lumping all cryptocurrencies in one basket, yeah, Bitcoin is losing some of its dominance there. However, if you are looking at it as a space that has matured to the point where there are many different use cases for cryptocurrencies, stores of value versus smart contract capabilities, not that Bitcoin can't do smart contracts, folks, but that is not the primary use case. And when Ethereum was born in the first place, Vitalik was a Bitcoiner. He was into developing Bitcoin, and he wanted to do things that Bitcoin was not at the time capable of doing. And so he went off and created his own thing that would do the things he wanted to do, and things have been growing on that. And in turn, Ethereum hasn't done all the things that people want to do with smart contracts, so they've gone off and they've done things on their own projects. And all of these are working together to create a strong, mature ecosystem. So this idea of Bitcoin losing and others winning, and that there's some sort of competition between the two, I don't think is something we need to be focusing on. And I don't even know if that is a useful way of approaching it or a healthy way of approaching it. I think I think we can see the ecosystem as diverse enough to support lots of different projects that have different use cases.